In this episode, I have the pleasure of sharing an enlightening conversation with Bern Mendez. He's a neuroscience-based dating and relationship coach who specializes in helping high-value women over 40 find the right partner. We talk about how our nervous systems actually play a part in picking our partners, whether we know it or not. We also talk about how it might be time to take out that long-standing list of non-negotiables and give it one more look. And Bern shares a personal story of a special moment that reminded him of the importance of his mission. It's a good conversation. Stay tuned.
Nobody's ever gonna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you 'cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.
Welcome back to the Gen X Juggler Podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad to introduce today's guest. I'm excited to have him on. He is someone who brings heart, depth, and a refreshing level of honesty to the world of modern relationships. Bern Mendez is a dating relationship coach with over 14 years of experience. Trained by Tony Robbins and certified in strategic intervention, he specializes in helping high-achieving, purpose-driven women over 40 stop self-abandoning in love and finally attract emotionally available, deeply committed partners. Doesn't that sound great? Bern's approach blends neuroscience, emotional attunement, and real-world strategy to help women break painful patterns, resist toxic dynamics, and reconnect with their true worth. Please welcome to the Gen X Juggler Podcast, Bern Mendez.
Hey, Deb, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to have this conversation. As I was sharing with you a little bit earlier before we started, I really enjoy your energy. I think you have a great presence. And also, I listened to a few of the episodes you have. I just like your vibe and what you're doing right now. I think bringing
Thank
attention
you.
to Gen X problems is something that's needed.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And that is my mission to just create camaraderie among us all so we can get through this thing called midlife together. What a ride. And I'm so happy to have you today because you seem to hold the keys to one of the biggest mysteries in life, and that is creating healthy relationships, dating well, especially in midlife. It's one of the things that gets harder as we get older.
I thank you for that. I don't know that I hold the keys. I think I have some insights that
You do.
may
You
be
have some
different from other people in the sense that I've dedicated a lot of time to figuring out what works and not just based on my own ideas and feelings, even though that's something that informs it, but just doing some research to figure out what works, what doesn't, and then getting a chance to test it with my clients.
So it seems like dating should be such a natural thing. Why are these outside of the box solutions so important to achieving our goals when it comes to finding a partner?
It's a great question. Out of the box solutions are necessary because the normal solutions, which is just put yourself out there on a dating site, don't work. Not that apps don't work, it's just that if that's your only tool, that's the recipe for burnout and for disappointment and for making the problem worse. The first thing I would say is that it's really, really important to, despite the fact that data sometimes feels a little scary, to not try to avoid seeing the truth for what it is, because there's very little chance of coming up with a solution to a problem that you don't fully understand. I was talking with you a little before the conversation, before we recorded, about I'm doing a research paper on the depth of the problem for single women in midlife who are professional, who have a college degree and want to find a match. And even though I'm in this industry of helping people, there's things that I'm finding out that are challenging and not fun to find out. But here's the powerful thing about that. Finding those things out allows people to actually find solutions that can be based in reality versus myth. There's a lot of people out there, and I say this with kindness, and I don't want to put names out there, just there's people out there who have their own ideas about what's going on that are not based in truth or science in any way and are confusing people more than helping. The worst advice you can get is the well-intentioned advice by someone who doesn't know.
Oh,
because
that's
you'll
true.
trust it, and then it's not, you don't know that it's harmful, but it's harmful. And everybody has an opinion, from self-proclaimed experts to friends to family members. They'll tell you stuff they heard on TikTok.
Yes, they
And
will. Yes.
and sometimes that's just not true. So getting in touch with a solution that includes a few things, includes a deep awareness of the challenge, not trying to block the sun with one thumb, and then the solution that is not just strategic in nature, although strategy is important, but is heart in nature and is somatic in nature and is based in something that is in some ways trauma informed, allows people to create changes that are not necessarily a logical challenge, but an emotional challenge. Like, there's a lot of people who know what to do, but they don't do it. So a lot of the people, I mean, I based on the way I do things and the way I share things, and also the way my mind works, I tend to attract for working very intelligent, very successful people. Yeah, doctors, lawyers, scientists, researchers, therapists many times. And so the mind knows certain things, but the body can't seem to follow through with that. So having an understanding of why that is the way it is very helpful. Having an understanding of who actually needs therapy versus coaching is helpful. There's people who will take anyone and they'll claim a result, and they are just re-traumatizing the human being more than
Oh,
anything else. So having a little bit of, or a lot more knowledge is important, figuring out who can I help and how can I help that human being to not look at the data and feel scared, but show them a roadmap that, despite the stuff that's out there, allows them to be in the right rooms where they can be seen, allows them to vet people in a way that's healthy and powerful for them without having a super long laundry list of that seems like a demand, that allows them to tweak those filters, because not everything should be a non-negotiable, and understanding from a place of science what of the factors are much more likely to give you the relationship you want, longevity wise and successful relationship wise, matters, because otherwise you'll think that everything's the same. I'll give you a super simple example. I mean, we go a lot more in depth in when I work with someone, but to give you an example, I had a client who had a lot of filters of things that she had to have in someone before she could say yes. And one that I helped her challenge, and I'm never saying to someone you should change this. Sometimes I sense that there's a stronger feeling of, I would really want you to question this. And she had a thing that he must not own a dog. And she was serious. For her entire life, she had that thing. And I questioned a little bit because I thought maybe there's trauma with a dog bite or something. And it's none of that. She just didn't prefer it, And then I said, well, let's make that a preference. Well, long story short, I mean, she got married recently to an amazing man, respectful, thoughtful, kind, who is a dog lover and has a dog. And she calls herself mama dog or something like that these days. And she's so happy with I mean, she doesn't love the fur or the hairs of the dog,
right.
but she's so happy with her life because we tweak that one thing. Now, that seems like so obvious for some people, but there's people who have equally, to me, obvious, but not to them, things that we can tweak that allow them to see more opportunities where before they were meeting silence. So when you do that, you show up stronger. You have better skills in vetting people. Like, every little tweak you make exponentially ups the curve of you having what you want. So we're not going for, let's wing this. It's like there's things that are put in place that can dramatically make this more fun and also eliminate the time it's going to take for you to find a human being that's super resonant with you.
You often say that our nervous systems play a part in picking our partners. Why does that matter, and how does that happen exactly?
Yeah, well, it's a complex answer, but I'll give you the bird's eye view. Your nervous system typically is choosing who you connect with before you have full awareness of what's happening. And a practical way to look at that is, imagine that you are looking at a swimming pool, and that swimming pool, it's raining and it's storming and has lots of ripples. And imagine that your nervous system can act basically as a pool that's pristine and clear, where you can see and feel what's really taking place, or those ripples taking effect that may make making a decision much more complex. So it affects us in two different ways. One, it's harder to make a decision based on truth and based on what's really good for us versus what feels good in the moment, but may not be a good idea long term. And it also affects us in the way that we as human beings correlate with each other. We're correlating creatures. So the more connected you are and more regulated you are as a human being, the easier it will be to connect with someone who is also regulated and do the dance of two healthy human beings being seen, felt, self-expressed, attunement, that art of basically experiencing that connection. That's a voice, it's a nervous system, it's intellect. That happens when you get a chance to regulate yourself and also have the insight from that place to connect with someone who is healthier emotionally and who can go the distance with you.
So, what I feel like I'm hearing you saying is like attracts like. So, if you're dysregulated
Yeah.
and you're not where you need to be, you're going to attract the same. If you're damaged and living in your damage, you're going to attract damaged people. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I wouldn't call it damage because that would be almost like the behavior equals the identity. And for me, it's a bit different. But I would say that if you're someone who is commonly experiencing dysregulation, you're much more likely to attract someone that is dysregulated, not even think that's what's happening, and then think to yourself, I'm not sure if you ever had a girlfriend tell you, there's something about this guy, it's so special. And that special thing is that there's an essence of mystery, but that mystery could be an avoidant tendency, or it could be, he reminds me of my dad, who used to be really mean, or mom really mean to me, and it's mysterious, but it's not really mysterious. It's like that feels like that's a place that's painful, but feels like home. And I want to repeat that feeling of home with my partners. We get a chance to relieve and try to heal what we didn't heal growing up. And sometimes if you're not really aware of what's happening somatically here, then you'll more likely than not choose a partner that is wrong for you, not despite the fact that it's wrong for you, but because they're wrong for you, in a sense.
Because they are the familiar. That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. So that's one area where we need to pay attention, is make sure we are regulated. We have a regulated
Yeah.
nervous system.
And to be as practical as possible, if you want to hear a little bit more, it's it starts with what habits and what rituals you consciously choose to step into, regardless of what's happening around you. Because life is, as you know, really complex.
Yes.
The world right now seems to be on fire as we speak in so many different areas and levels. So if you don't take a conscious approach of something as simple as breathing, something as simple as checking in with yourself and noticing what's in your heart, something as simple as movement every day that allows you to let out some of that anxiety that builds up in a way that's healthy, instead of just turning it against a partner or seeking that thrill
yeah.
from someone because you're kind of bored, so you're seeking some excitement, sometimes not in a healthy way. So the more you have like simple rituals that allow you to come back to yourself, the easier it is, because otherwise regulation seems like a complex thing, and it's not that it isn't fundamentally, but there's practical ways to get there that are really helpful as you go out. If somebody's going out to create that connection with someone, taking that step first is really important. Also, I mean, well, we can talk more about dating apps and all that later, but it impacts everything you do, including that.
Yes, and that's also important. I can't help but think of my girlfriends right now who are on the dating scene in their 40s and 50s. Beautiful, talented women with great careers, intelligent, and this is a difficult area for them. And I wonder sometimes if the messaging that we receive is actually counter to what we should be doing to find the right partner.
I think that because there's so many voices out there, we've never drowned more in information and at the same time be lacking in depth and meaning. If you go to a restaurant and have a meal, the person who's serving your food is a relationship expert, or a life coach. And I don't say this negatively. There's so much
No, it's
out there.
true.
There's so many different opinions, and a lot of it is based on myths and BS. So I think that some of the things that women hear ranges from play hard to get, be mysterious. Sometimes it's just wait, it'll happen when it happens, and that's just the recipe for disaster,
Ooh,
because and I'll explain why a little later.
that's
And
interesting.
then there's
Yes.
also the just be yourself. Nothing wrong in essence with that, but which self are we talking about? Are we talking about the self that is excited and progressive and nuanced and boundary setting in a healthy way, or the self that is seeking a thrill of the spark of connection and may not think? So there's many selves you could be. So I think that
That's
we are living in an age where there is, especially for women in midlife, and I've been doing a lot of research over the last few years, and the last month I've been doing nothing other than that. And I can tell you right now, looking at the data, and I'm coming up with a paper that's extensive in terms of all the pinpoints of why this is so challenging for women in midlife to create.
true.
But I'll say right now that given the number of data points that make it incredibly hard for someone who's thoughtful, who's educated, who has a good income to find a compatible match, that the idea of winging it is, to me, misinformed or crazy, one of the two. And I say that in a kind way, not in a mean way.
No, it
Also, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that makes total sense because it's not working for many of the women that I know who are
It's
winging
not
it. And
working
they're
because we're just
wonderful
like,
people.
yeah, we're not sure, we're not fully aware of the severity of the problem. So that's part of it. That it's hard to solve a problem if you don't fully see the way the landscape is set. So when you understand
Mm,
all those things, then you can build a solution around not myths or BS, but the data, and then figure out not why is it so hard. We know it's hard, but how can I thrive despite the hardship that exists? And that's been my focus. It's not that it's
mm,
easy, or that you go out and connect with thousands and thousands of conscious men everywhere. It's that how, despite the way the landscape is, what can you do that's within your control to, irrespective of that, still create the life that you want? And more than that, not just have the relationship you want, but use this as an excuse to be a version of you that you would have never been had you not put yourself in that situation of, I call it the spiritual aspect, the spiritual path of
mhm.
dating versus just dating to catch a husband. So
Yes.
that path is a transformative one. If you do it intentionally, that despite it's so hard, you can still get what you want, but you do have to be intentional about it. Otherwise, you can be in what I call a 10-year plan, and nobody ever knocks on my door saying, hey, give me the 10-year plan. Like, no,
Right.
they want a much faster solution than that.
I know. That is so true. So you talk about the two selves and the one that's just aiming for that intense chemistry.
Mhm.
What does that intense chemistry do to us that can kind of throw us off of the track we need to be on when we're looking for a life partner?
Sure. So I'll preface this by saying that we all seek, I mean, with some level of intensity in our lives, we all seek the
Absolutely.
feeling of being alive. If you look at the research, I would be a huge tangent. I'm not going to go into that. But there's a lot of research around the area of infidelity, for example, that
Mm.
people have this misconception that it's about sex. And it's not about sex. It's about feeling alive for the most part. I'm not
Oh,
condoning it or saying
wow.
it's great. It's not. But when people end up doing that, I mean, researchers who have studied this, the answer that keeps coming back again is, I want to feel alive. So taking that into relationships, we all seek that feeling of aliveness. The challenge right now is not that we seek it, is that we seek it sometimes at a level that is not self-created. So
Mhm.
I'm seeking in someone the thing I don't even give to myself. So it's a mismatch. And then I seek it at a level that is sometimes not sustainable. And I give you, as an example, the idea that we all have about the love at first sight. I even was reading, and I don't mean any disrespect to this person, a book about someone who uh, was married and found somebody, and they knew they in their own words fell in love in the first 5 seconds. And I mean, I take a different view on that. Again, no judgment. Actually, I think there's neurochemicals and things taking place beyond the spiritual meaning that you can give to that might create a situation of that nature. But I think that we're seeking a level of thrill and spark. So because of this ideal of Cinderella, they crossed eyes and they fell in love at the first second. A lot of people and Hollywood and films and novels and books and you name it, like I'll know when I meet him. So if that doesn't happen, then your nervous system says, or your brain convinces you that, you know what, he's not the one. First of all, there's not such a thing as the one. That doesn't exist, but there's, I think, again, in the research I was looking at, and I can find the figure, but I think it's 65% of people interviewed believe in the idea of the one out of 4 billion humans, opposite sex. If you're heterosexual, there's one that is the right exact one for me. So that idea, coupled with the instant gratification sense of I want the sparks right now, makes a lot of people do away with human beings who would have been incredible partners, but because they didn't feel that spark, it didn't happen. So we need to be able to, again, going back to regulation, when we regulate ourselves, it's not that we don't seek that thrill, it's that we don't seek it at the expense of what's good for us. And that's part of the challenge right now. If you don't have that excitement in your life and you're going for, I want to feel that intensely, it's unsustainable because there's a lot of things happening in your nervous system and your brain neurochemically that are giving you, if you study anything like by Helen Fisher, she did a lot of work and wrote many books in terms of the neurochemistry that takes place when people fall in love. And you can see basically, like, it's not just the falling in love, it's this cocktail of chemicals and taking place all throughout that give you that feeling of, oh, this person is the right person. But what happens when that decreases? Then you start finding that the person has flaws or that you hate certain things about them.
Right.
And then it's a negative, it's a surprise. It's like a bad feeling of, I was hoaxed in some way. And it's not that, it's like, it just takes time to settle and find out the truth about someone. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
No,
that's because there's so much about this,
It does. That thrill, first of all, the need to seek a thrill in ourselves that can be there if we're not satisfying that for ourselves and making our own lives interesting. And that screen that's created by the thrill that that starts to wear away, and then you see what's really going on under the surface, and you're not sure if you want to be with that. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now, because of that, do you recommend getting to know someone for a while before you introduce any type of physical intimacy into the equation?
For sure. Yeah, because I think for a lot of us, especially if we're sensitive human beings, and especially if we have any type of attachment issues, and it's not bad that, I mean, I'm not saying attachment as you're stuck with that, but if we've had that, then connecting with someone and being physically intimate, and even more than physically intimate, being sexually intimate, is going to create a level of attachment sometimes that is hard to just think your way out of. So let's say that, example, two people connect, they feel super attracted to each other, they have sex, and then there's blatant flaws. Let's say I talk to women typically because that's I work with women. So imagine that a woman connects with a guy and he has some really bad traits. And there's a part of her that's saying, I don't want to see this because this feels so good.
Right.
It's almost, without it being an addiction, it's addictive in nature. So you'll have some scotomas, let's call it that, some blind spots that will prevent you from seeing the truth of this dude, because if you were to see the truth of him, you might have to stop this thing that makes you feel so alive. So by taking some time to introduce physical contact, to introduce touch, to introduce sexual contact, then you can see those blatant red flags that you wouldn't have otherwise, and then make a decision that's informed. Despite these things that I'm seeing, do I want to connect with this person knowing that I'll probably feel more attached to them? And if the answer is no, it's easier to step away at that point than when you're all in, and then your heart says one thing and your brain says something else, and typically the thing that feels better wins. I'm not sure if you ever had the experience of having a girlfriend who's with a dude that's a bad boy, let's call him that, just for super generic purposes, or someone who's not good for her and can't seem to stop. There's more reasons than that, but that's definitely part of it. The chemistry that takes place convinces your brain that it's worth another hit,
Yes, that makes total sense. And then I've watched a few of your videos about what to do when you feel a man start to pull away. And once you've introduced that physical intimacy, the stakes are even higher on that. But I would love to go into some of that as well, about, because so many of us, I don't know maybe one, like people who were high school sweethearts or college sweethearts. But as far as those of us who've dated when we were older, I think we've all experienced that. Like, oh, we have such great chemistry. We get along so well, so much in common. Where did he go? What did I do?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's many ways to tackle this. One would be to talk about the reality right now in the field is that some people will do that. And I think it has to do with many factors. There's so many different factors that impact this, from the online app availability to the illusion of so many choices to the many people who are dating and dating and dating people who are more avoidant in nature tend to recycle themselves more into the dating pool than people who are securely attached, let's say, right? So if you have a larger proportion, and I can't give you the exact figure of people who have that type of tendency anyways, and you connect with them, then the likelihood that they could disappear is higher. But here's the thing that makes this less likely to happen. And I talk about dating intentionally a lot. When you connect with someone and that human being is looking for something, it's super important to find out, sometimes before you even date that person, what the end goal for that person is. Because I connect with lots of clients who have not done it this way. When they do it this way, they waste so much less time. So imagine that you connect with someone and the guy seems attractive. He pings you on an app, and then you start talking, friendly banter, flirting, and then asks you out, and you're like, sure, let's do this. And then you go on a date, don't ask a lot of questions. The first date, you feel like, well, it feels kind of good, so I'm not even going to ask because I don't want him to run away. So we just start connecting. And then the guy ends up making a move, gives you a kiss. Like, things start developing, and it's the 10th date now, and the subject of what are we doing hasn't even come up yet. At this point, people decide, let's say, to have sex, and maybe sometimes much sooner than that. And then that's where that's the discrepancy. Now I'm starting to feel attached to this guy. I don't even know if he wants a serious commitment, not just necessarily with me, in general. And I feel more and more attached to them. And maybe, let's say, you have more of an anxious attachment. Now, that's sometimes a bad combination, because you start then reaching out to this person. This person starts saying, well, it's too much, and then starts disappearing. So the more you reach out, the more the person goes away. But it could have all been avoided had somebody taken the time. And in this case, I'm asking the women that I connect with, because typically they're the ones who are asked out first, not all the time, but many times, to take the time to ask a question. Tell me what you're looking for in a relationship these days, And if the guy is like, right now it's complicated, like, just out, why connect with this person, right? If the person's kind of vibing in a sense of saying, hey, I'm looking for something serious, like, me too. Tell me more about what that means, right? Because something serious could mean something very different from what you're looking for. Now, if those initial filters pass, then you can move into, let's meet in person, right? But the example I gave is, imagine that you're looking for an amazing house. You want to move homes finally, and you've saved up and you're super excited. And then you see this house online that's amazing. It has a swimming pool, like the one you want. It's a secluded area. The whole thing. And then you just go out with your realtor to look at the house, and you start falling in love with the house. And then you find out, maybe after 3 times of visiting the house is not for sale. Imagine that you ask your realtor, only take me to houses that are for sale. You would have missed on the experience of seeing that house, but what good is it for you if it's not even for sale, to spend time daydreaming about where your bedroom is going to go? And that's a discrepancy that I hear with, I've heard some dating coaches talk about, it's too early to talk about that. If you're at this age, let's be serious. We have no time to waste.
Yes.
And don't mean by that you have to do an inquisition or a super long questionnaire before you meet someone, but you owe it to yourself to not go on a date and have you taken 5 conscious minutes, avoid 3 hours of your life that will never come back. And people get burned out by that, because if you go through 10 dates back to back and you could have avoided 7 of them, but you don't, then you say dating sucks. But if you only have 3 dates and they're better quality ones, then that's where the excitement of dating can come back into form,
Yes, I love that. Just dating intentionally and being bold enough to ask the questions. I think sometimes, I don't know if it's direct messaging to us, but I know a lot of women feel like we don't want to be too bold. We don't want to push too much right at the beginning. Give him a chance to get to know me and how great I am before he feels like I'm trying to, wife him up or whatever.
But here's the thing: it's not necessarily, it's not even a thing about, are you good enough for me? It's like, I also don't want to waste your time, because if you're coming to me seeking a thrill and I'm looking for something serious, then I'm going to waste your time too. So it's more of a respectful, mutual thing where I value and love myself first and foremost, but I also value your time. So I'm going to ask this question that may sound weird to some. But here's the thing. Imagine if the guy has difficulty asking a simple question like that, what are the chances in a million years that the guy wants to marry you someday? Like, if he can't even answer that question, like, what am I looking for in a potential relationship with someone, not even with me, right?
Yeah.
So we take it to something more practical that demystifies the process of what does it take to not waste time and have a bit more fun when you're doing the dating thing, you know?
That's so true. That's so true. So I love that. Dating intentionally, being willing to ask those questions, know what your questions are in advance,
Yeah.
and come at it from the point of I respect to them as well. I don't want to waste
Yeah,
your time.
and
That's
this
a
day and
good way to
age,
look at it.
honestly, yeah, one thing I'd recommend, Deb, to anyone who's watching this or listening to this is that take it one notch up and add an extra filter, and that is a video call before a date. And here's why.
Oh,
Because many reasons. One is you'll get a much more profound vibe of someone on video that you'll ever will on audio. And this is not to, I'm not asking them to judge is he the love of my life? I felt it the first time. No, no, no. That's not at all what I'm
mhm.
saying. It's like, is there something blatant and obvious, a creepy vibe, something that doesn't match, 10, 20 years older than the picture that you saw, that misrepresentation of who they are, a bot, a guy in a basement pretending to be somebody else, which happens more and more, unfortunately.
Wow.
And in this age group, it happens more than in younger age groups because it's a more vulnerable population. So having a video call with someone is going to give you some extra filtering sense of, is this a hell no type experience, or is this a maybe? A maybe is a pass. It's not necessarily a strong yes, but it's a pass, right? But having that experience of seeing someone will diminish the risk. And also, there's going to be guys who say, I don't do that. So here's my question to any woman who's basically, and it happens a lot. Some guys will disappear when you ask that question for many reasons. But I've had clients who, when they start asking that question, they say, well, the guys don't want to connect with me. Like, maybe I should drop it out. I was like, no. If a guy doesn't understand the gigantic disparity in the risk of a woman dating versus a man dating this day and age, he's not conscious enough for you to want to date him. And you can, I mean, I'm not saying you can't explain why you want to do this, but it's safety first, basically. But if after explaining it, the guy doesn't get it, I mean, wow, like that's a completely no-go for you, right? So
Yes.
doing little things like this that may be uncomfortable but not impossible. Again, every little thing you do increases the chance of you experiencing what you want more quickly.
That's awesome. And it sounds like you're advising us to be our own advocate and look out for ourselves in ways that maybe we haven't up to this point, especially in the
Yeah,
age of online dating. That's so tricky. I'll get concerned about my
it
friends
is.
going on dates or meeting people somewhere. But then I think, well, everybody's on there now. It's not, I would think the odds are okay that she's meeting someone that's okay.
Yeah. I wrote a recent article about dating abroad, but one of the points that I shared in that article is that I strongly recommend that one of the protocols you have for dating is a safety protocol. And that could include sharing your location with someone who you know and you trust, and having a safeguard mechanism of saying, by this time, I'm going to check in with you. If I haven't checked in with you, check in with me, right? Always meet in a public place the first few times, right? Because I hear, for example, women who share, hey, I met him so-and-so, and then next time he came to pick me up. I mean, you don't know the guy after the second date. And I understand that there's
Right.
generic vibe sense, but you'd be surprised how many people are intelligent and masking who they are. And now they have your phone number, they know your address. That's just a much more challenging proposition. It's always going to be a risk at some level, but at the beginning, you want to make sure, don't go to his house, don't invite him to your house, drive yourself to the place, limit the number of drinks you have. Believe it or not, it makes a difference in your judgment, right? I have 4
Yeah.
drinks, very different situation versus I had no drinks, which is maybe not bad, or I had 1 drink. So little things
Yes.
like that, having a buddy system, checking in with them at the end of the date. Also, something that's really helpful is at the end of the date, you have a voice memo thing that's free on your phone. Record yourself a memo in terms of how you felt in the experience. Is there something that gave you pause about the person? Because here's the thing that's going to happen. Especially if you have some red flags, feelings, the more you spend time with that person, the more your brain will say, not really important. But I just want you to give yourself a memo about what you experienced so that if you get fussy about the whole thing, you can listen to yourself, talking to yourself, saying, hey, watch out for this, you know?
That's so smart. The in the moment thought. That is so smart because we will talk ourselves out of that for sure. We're very good at that.
Yeah.
You mention that sometimes we will go for a guy who is not the best for us because of maybe he is super attractive or super charming or has all these really surface qualities that we want to go for. And I've heard you encourage us to get to know the guys who don't sparkle as much as maybe those more guys that catch our eye a little bit more. Can you explain why that's
Yeah,
important?
absolutely. So this is in no way disregard guys who are attractive, intelligent, smart, tall, and strong. It's
Sure.
be aware that that sometimes could come at a cost. And the cost could be someone who's incredibly charming and is not necessarily love bombing you, but is telling you what you want to hear and have wanted to hear so that he can act in a way, not even consciously sometimes, in a way that actually creates connection, physical connection, sexual connection. So uh, being on the watch out for that also means that when you connect with someone and there's no immediate sparks, but there's something about that person that's intelligent, you feel that he has intelligence, he has good values, I'm just not in love with him, that's okay. That's not a bad sign. So give him another date and go a little deeper on the conversation, on what you ask. Share a bit 1% more vulnerability than you normally would. I say 1% because that's the safer way to do it. It's like a ladder, right? You share 1%,
Mhm.
1%, is it still safe? So versus I shared the story of my life and now he has details that he could be using against you if you haven't vetted him properly. So you do that nuanced thing and then you go on a third date with that person. Now, by the third date, you feel nothing more, like really connect with your heart and you feel nothing more, or you feel less, stop connecting with him. If you feel a bit more, not that you fell in love with him or that you felt he's the most attractive guy after 30 dates, but there's something, that's the flame of a candle can build versus a firecracker that explodes and then there's nothing left. That's when it's important for you to do it. Not to force yourself to like someone that you don't like, but to not tell yourself the lie that, oh, I didn't feel the spark initially, so he's not my guy. When I've had many clients with the first date, it was okay, it wasn't bad, because obviously that was the second date. But the
Mhm.
second date came as a request of me saying, hey, please give him a second date if he's not a bad guy. And they're like, oh, okay. And they end up marrying the guy. And they end up sharing with me, I would have never gone for that guy before. And I did because I was encouraged, right, to look outside my usual list of my type and connect with
Mhm.
someone who has more depth and who has stronger values, but didn't initially strike me as the conqueror Viking, which is another thing. I mean, I think there's a stereotype of this super. I hate the use of the word, but I think people will get what I mean by it quickly. The alpha male, the guy who's I do what I want, when I want, with whom I want, and I'm so assertive, but at the same time insecure. But I look so that type of guy doesn't usually pan out great for women, and not because I'm not asking. I mean, I'm not that it's. I'm not unsuggesting that you go for a guy who's competitive, who's intelligent. I'm saying connect with a guy who's balanced, who also has a heart, who can also listen to you, who doesn't work 100 hours a week. Why? Because there's no way you can have a healthy relationship with someone if you work at 100. It's just then, I mean, it's a mismatch. It's like I smoke and I'm healthy. No, those two things are not true, you know? So,
Yeah.
so it's one of the things where if you take the time to go a bit deeper in conversation, and again, I'm advocating for emotional regulation. If you do the back and forth emotionally regulated, connecting with someone, being more vulnerable, you might find yourself really liking someone that your previous self would have dismissed. And if that's not the case, you didn't lose anything. You gave a guy a
Mhm.
chance. And you also learn more communication skills instead of just going for the shiny object.
And that's so true. I think there's so much value in that for sure. If someone is in their 40s and finds
Yeah,
themselves still single right now, there is a great resource on your website at bernmendez.com. Would you like to tell us about your quiz and what can come from that quiz?
sure. Yeah, the quizzes are very simple, by the way. I'm not claiming the scientifically proven result by a 2-minute quiz, but it's going to give you an idea, a baseline of what could be going on. You can find it. I think I created a new website for that. It's called attractionblindspot.com. So you can just go attractionblindspot.com and find it, or bernmendez.com also and find it. So either one. But it's going to ask you a few questions to get a sense of what are potential high-level blind spots, not the deepest blind spots, high-level blind spots that you may not be seeing right now that prevent you from getting what you want. I think a lot of people, I talk about this, and I'm not the only one who talks about it, but imagine you're inside a glass jar, juice jar, and you can't see the label on the outside, right?
Mhm.
Taking a little bit of a step out, and that's why this is powerful. That's why working with someone, and I'm not even saying me, working with someone who understands this deeply and can see patterns in your chess game that you're not sensing can eliminate years of the process, because you might be, and this is what a lot of us do in areas we're not super familiar with, confuse the symptom with the root cause. So I keep
Oh,
attracting emotionally available guys. That's not a problem. That's a symptom. Or I don't find anyone attractive. Not a problem, a symptom, right? Or no one approaches me. That's a symptom, right? So when you get to work with someone who can help you see what you're not seeing and give you tools, not new HBS, but tools that are rooted in science and also practical experiences that they've seen, it can radically cut down the time of you finding what you want, especially this day and age where the odds are challenging. I mean, I'm not gonna. I would lie to you if I said, "Hey, it's equal footing." It's not. I mean, it's really challenging, but it's doable. We just can't get there without some new tools, and also without recognizing that this is the first time in human history where the type of connection we want is possible. And I'm not the only one talking about this. There's a bunch of really insightful experts like Eli Finkel, like Esther Perel, who talk about this idea. Eli Finkel talks about it in the sense of we're asking relationships, I think I'm paraphrasing slightly, to take us up the mountain of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because that's what
mm,
we equate relationships now, the pinnacle of self-expression, and we give it them the thinnest of air to go up. And by thinnest of air, I mean not enough education as to what it's going to take to go up there, and also myths about what that summit might be. So although now we have the biggest possibility of creating something that hasn't happened in human history in terms of emotional connection, spiritual connection, depth of being seen, most people won't get there because they won't take the time, or they won't even know that it's possible to learn the skill of love versus the feeling of love, learn the skill of intimacy versus it's something that happens. It doesn't just happen. You create it, you study it, you express it. It sounds boring, but it's not boring. It's super exciting, because then you realize that you have the future that you want is much more in your control than you realize when you use some powerful tools.
yes. The tools are the key for sure. I mean, it's not obvious. As obvious as it seems it should be to just connect with someone and find someone who connects with you. We do need the tools and we need the advice to help us get to that mountaintop, like you said. And I love that this is the time when many of us are able to find what we're really looking for. Like you said, it's out there and we're able to connect better than we ever have before. That's good information. That's hope.
Yeah, it's just think about it this way. Again, the same researcher catalogs relationships in three different eras: pre 1850, right? That's
Hmm.
one era of relationships, and that's more of a utilitarian type of connection and marriage, which is like convenience and also passage of property and a bunch of other things. Then 1850 to 1965 would be another era, which is more of a companionship era. And then the 1965 to now, which is the self-realization epoch of relationships. It's like you're a successful, intelligent woman. You don't need a guy to pay your bills. You don't need a guy to, I mean, you can do many things on your own and sometimes even better, right? The
Hmm.
thing now is we're looking for relationships to be something that's more of a fulfillment part of our expression. And because of that, because we want more than we've ever wanted, that's why we need the tools. Because how can you get, it's like, I'm going to climb Everest with no Sherpa, with no oxygen, with no, I mean, maybe 3 backpacks. Theoretically doable, but who's going to really get there, right? The more you learn, the more skills you get, the more feedback you get. If you can do this, and not everybody can, if you can get support and coaching, the more
Hmm.
you do some of those things, you remove backpacks from your thing, you add oxygen, you add a Sherpa, you add a line. So it's still challenging, but it's doable. It now becomes, the summit becomes possible when you do more things.
I wanted to ask you about a story you shared with me that I feel like really demonstrates your passion for what you do and may have even increased your passion.
Mm,
And that was right after your father passed away. And I'm so sorry for your loss.
thank you.
You had a beautiful moment where he taught you a lesson even after his passing.
Yes, it is probably one of the hardest days of my life because when he passed, everything happens, in a way that was a challenging but beautiful moment. And I describe it this way because if you've ever been present in the birth of someone, I'm not sure if you have children or not, but
I have
if you've
3.
ever been like being in the presence where there's a soul that comes into the room and fills the room in 1 second and your life changes instantly, and that's a beautiful moment. A death that's conscious is similar, even though there's more of a nostalgic element of somebody leaving. So that was the experience for me when my father passed away. We were holding hands. I was women came to sing for him. It was an incredible, surrounded by his entire family, letting go, listening to music. It was a beautiful thing. But then the moment hits you the next day, we're like, oh, this is real. And it's not a nightmare. I've had this nightmare. I mean, it's real. So I go into his room after crying my eyes out because I went inside the house and it was just a surreal experience to know that he's never going to be in person with me ever again. So I crashed for about an hour or something, and then I got feeling a bit more, I mean, just a bit less intense, and went into his room helping my mom to clean some things. And I go into his drawer of his bathroom and I open it up and I find his wallet and I find a couple of things, a little saint that my grandfather had given him, you know? And then I opened this thing and it had a $1 bill. And to me, it was such a profound, like, oh, I mean, like, not, it's just, it was like symbolic for me. It's money, okay? $1, not like, and he can take this with him, you know? And then I go back to the previous night where my mom, who had been his partner for 30 something years, was touching him and holding him as he passed away. And I'm not going to claim they had the best marriage on earth. They had some amazing moments and some challenging moments, like most couples. But they had this feeling of true, deep witness and friendship that goes beyond most types of friendships. So to have to reach the end of your life and have someone who knows you that deeply be there for you and with you and have that type of connection that transcends space and time is something that I think we should all strive for. So that feeling of that feeling of true connection with someone that is different from connecting with a child, that is different from connecting with a friend, I think is something that, not for everyone, but for many of us, it's something that is a worthy goal of pursuit in this lifetime.
It is such a worthy goal. And thank you for helping us, giving us the tools, and offering your coaching services to help so many. And anyone who is interested in connecting with Bern can go to bernmendez.com.
Yeah,
Is that correct? And sign up for your coaching. His YouTube is amazing. TikTok is amazing. You won't watch anything that he puts out that you don't take something really great from.
Oh, thank you.
Is there any other social media or anything that you want to mention?
I think the website is the main place because my main site, bernmendez.com, has a bunch of links to other things, including the quiz, including my YouTube. So that's the main hub for everything.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on. I wish I had hours and hours and hours because I could just talk your ear off and listen to you all day. But I appreciate you coming on and giving us the wisdom that you've given us today. I know it's going to be helpful to a lot of people.
Well, thank you for the invite. And thank you for the thoughtful questions. And beyond the thoughtful questions, thanks for your energy. I mean, I really enjoy the vibe that you bring to the table is the reason I said, I'm going to do this thing. Because I didn't know that much about you, but it didn't take long for me to feel there's a strong feeling of this person's there for a good reason. So I'm really happy to be here. And I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of the questions and your energy and the whole thing.
Thank you, Bern. That means so much. Come back anytime. I've
Awesome.
loved having you.
For sure.
wanna take your place. Yeah, I think we should meet in the middle. I follow you 'cause you're the light of the day. I need you like you need me, it's so simple. It's so simple.